What if TAPU BULU was in Gen 1 OU? Welcome to the second part of my 4-part series, going over all 4 of the Tapus in Generation 1. Now, Tapu Koko yesterday was quite frankly amazing. So much better than I thought it was going to be. And it seems like you guys agree that Tapu Koko would probably be better than Zapdos. So, how will Tapu Bulu do? Will it be better than Executor? Unlikely. Yeah, you guys also made it pretty clear that you are assuming that Tapu Bulu is gonna suck. And if not suck, at the very least be very mediocre. Which, I think that's a little harsh. And I was a little optimistic about Tapu Bulu. But let's actually see how it is, right? I think it won't be as bad as you guys say it probably would have been. Or actually, that's a lie. I already, made the replays. I know exactly how good it would be. Or at the very least, I know how it fares against the other Pokemon in the meta. But starting off with its typing, like I said in yesterday's video, and like I'll say for Waylay and Finny, the fairy type is practically a non-factor, both offensively and defensively. So Tapu Bulu is pretty much just a pure grass type for all intents and purposes. So is that good or bad? Now, hear me out here, but just like how pure bug is actually not that bad of a typing in Gen 1, it's sort of the same thing with grass. Because, like a ground resistance, that's actually pretty good. But unlike bug, you resist, ground, but you also resist water, and while not super relevant, it might come up sometimes, that being your resistance to grass. Every once in a while, your opponent might have a, Victory Bell or something, or a Venusaur. So it's a little bit better than bug in that sense, but also kind of worse. Oh, and electric. That's also another resistance, and that one's actually pretty huge. Ground and electric, which those are great resistances to have, but you're trading that for having a very bad blizzard weakness. Having an ice weakness in Gen 1 it's not good. You got, blizzards everywhere, like I just said. And also you have, Chanseys with Ice Beam. So it's just, even though you have, some really good resistances, it's still very dangerous for you. And not, super common. But you do have, Moltres and Tauros with Fire Blast. Not to mention, there's also Zapdos with Drill Peck. But luckily, Zapdos is literally the only, flying type with a flying type move you need to worry about. And like I said, Fire Blast, you might see it every once in a while, but it's not super common. So I do think that does kind of even out, its weaknesses a little bit, since for all intents and purposes, it only really has one real, weakness you always need to worry about, but it's also a super common move as well. So, you can let me know if you think, being grass, or pure grass basically, has more pros or if it has more cons. I'd love to hear what you have to say. But outside of that, its stats, as you can imagine, for Legendary, are really good. Becomes even better. Remember, it's Gen 1. So many Pokemon just have very weird stat distributions. Not to mention, just in general, a lot of stats are lowered. And Tapu Bulu has almost everything it could ever want. It has really good attack. It has, good enough HP for the time. Its defense is pretty good, which means that with that defense, you can soak up, body slams decently well. Paralysis is annoying, but it's also just Gen 1, so things are going to get paralyzed, whether they like it or not. Whether its special is 85 or 95, I don't think it matters too much. Obviously, it would rather have an HP of 95, and with Tapu Koko, having a special attack of 95. This is what I would assume it would have. It doesn't really use any special moves, unfortunately, so it doesn't really matter in the long run. But yeah, it's pretty good. And base 75, the best way I can describe it is good enough. Which I say that because 75 speed means it's just barely faster than Cloister. So having a Blizzard user like being a little bit faster than that is good, relevant, but I would argue it is quite literally the bare minimum for Tapu Bulu to be somewhat usable in Gen 1, and even then, it's still gonna really struggle. Speed is probably gonna be one of the main things that's to worry about, because, like, I'm gonna be real with you, the main gimmick for this guy, outside being a pure grass type, is also the fact that he has Sword Stance. And as you can imagine, a Pokemon with 130 attack, same as Kingler, that's pretty huge. But with that speed, and with, you being weak to one of the most common attacking types, you're gonna suffer a lot. And it's gonna be hard for you to actually find an opening to get up that Sword Stance. But luckily, unlike other Sword Stance users, Tapu Bulu does have some tools that can help make it a lot easier. Because as we see here, it unfortunately doesn't have Razor Leaf. If it did, I actually think I would say it would be OU. I would probably argue it being the worst Pokemon in OU, but I do think it would just barely be enough to not be underused or borderline. But since it doesn't have that, instead, when we look at the moves, it has Leech Seed, which I just don't think would ever be used. Obviously, just like yesterday's video, Tapu Bulu, as well as all of the other Tapus, will have access to Nature's Madness. This alone already gives it a niche that it can use in Gen 1. Because yes, if we're going over the Tapus, realistically, all 4 would be in the game at the same time. And giving Tapu Bulu, or just having it being able to wall Tapu Koko, I think someone said that yesterday, which yeah, I can see that being useful, but also doesn't really matter too much. But Nature's Madness, regardless if the other Tapus are in the game or not, does help it and gives it a good niche. And that's because even if you have all of the other Tapus, this one simply being a different type means that it could very well fit on just a different type of team style. Like for example, if you would want a Pokemon that can just very consistently half all of the opponent's HP, but let's say you're especially weak to Earthquakes and Rhydon, then you'd use Tapu Bulu. Let's say you just want to win the game, 9 times out of 10, use Tapu Koko. There's a good chance you use Tapu Koko no matter what. I don't know if Tapu Koko is good enough to be a top 4 Pokemon in Gen 1, but I think there's probably an argument you can make. But also with Tapu Fini and Tapu Lele. Haven't gone over them yet, but I'm willing to admit that them having access to Nature's Madness is really good. And being a pure water type basically, and a pure psychic type, also gives, more defensive utility as well. Basically, yeah, if Tapu Koko uses Nature's Madness, it just has a full-on offensive Pokemon, but it also has the benefits of resisting flying and electric. Meanwhile, Tapu Bulu resists ground, Tapu Lele, ice and water, and Fini, a psychic, which admittedly is a non-factor, since no one cares that psychic types are just psychic, since they fear psychic anyways. I do not know why I went on a long tangent about Nature's Madness. I think I'm just trying to gaslight you guys into thinking Tapu Bulu is better than it actually is. But outside of that, I also feel like, unlike Tapu Koko, Tapu Bulu is a good user of both Light Screen and Reflect. With Reflect, it just becomes full-on just unkillable on the physical side, to where Tauros' Body Slam, Hyper Beam, Snorlax's Body Slam and Hyper Beam, and Rhydon's Rock Slide, or even enemy Tapu Bulus, or other sword stance users, it just becomes really hard to kill because again, TAPU BULU has 115 defense. But widescreen I think would be better because with 95 special defense, which admittedly is pretty good for Gen 1 standards, once you get a widescreen up, it suddenly can fare a lot better against Pokemon like Chansey. It also means that you don't just get immediately annihilated by, Cloyster's Blizzard. And this is why I said having base 75 speed is the bare minimum. Because at the very least, you can outspeed Cloyster and not immediately die the Blizzard. Just very quickly instead. So yeah, it's not too much better. And that's why you really wish TAPU BULU was faster. Like at the very least, you wish it was just base 95 speed. That way, at the bare minimum, it can just speed tie with Jinx. Which, unfortunate, but there's not much you can really do. I'd still argue widescreen is worth it no matter what. Because yes, against Tauros' Blizzard, against Jinx, Starmie, you're probably not going to have an opportunity to use it anyways. For Tauros, it's probably so worth going for widescreen, since Tauros only has a non-stab base 70 special Blizzard. It'll still take a lot of damage with the first attack, but at the very least you'll get at least like 2 other turns, assuming they'll crit or freeze. But if you manage to take TAPU BULU out against something that, like you're faster than, so let's say like Slowbro, Snorlax, or Rhydon, then TAPU BULU could be a lot better and could just actually be able to get Sword Stance up, which again is probably its main thing. Sword Stance and Nature's Madness alone means that this guy can theoretically threaten everything in the game. Because obviously, just a Sword Stance Hyper Beam, this already can just kill so many things. Nature's Madness or Widescreen can help you take on, your threats. You don't have Earthquake, which in some ways can kind of be a death sentence. Same for not having Body Slam, no Double Edge, not even Submission. But you do have Rock Slide, which, yes, that is really lame. However, if you were to be stuck with, only one other physical move besides Hyper Beam, at least you're stuck with the one that's super effective against Cloyster and Zapdos. Rock Slide is still a very, low base power move, in my opinion. So even with the Sword Stance, it's probably not enough to take on Cloyster. However, it's you can make it work. You can definitely make it work. So that's why your main moves are just these 3 here: Sword Stance, Hyper Beam, Rock Slide, or you can replace one of these with Nature's Madness. So the last move can pretty much just be Nature's Madness, Widescreen, Reflect, or what's the last one I'm brain farting on? Why am I brain farting on this? I was just looking at it. Reflect, Widescreen. Is that it? Whatever. If there's another move that TAPU BULU learns in Gen 1 that I just somehow forgot, not counting Rest or Substitute, let me know in the comments below. But I'm pretty sure that's everything. It has Skull Bash, but that's obviously pretty bad. Same with Sword Stance, Sword Beam. So let's just get onto the replays, shall we? Starting off with the boy himself, Tauros. Like I said, you can survive at least one Blizzard, but I already had another replay where TAPU BULU, got frozen. And, what's it called? Blizzard is a 3-hit KO, if I remember correctly. So, it's just a bad matchup. If you already have a Widescreen up, or if you have a Reflect up, or now that I think about it, it doesn't matter if you have Reflect or Widescreen against Tauros, because regardless of which one you have, you just lose to Tauros' other coverage option. Reflect is still interesting. I don't think it's, super good, but I do think it's worth using every once in a while. But yeah, it doesn't matter what set you use, Tauros is probably just gonna kill you. Well, it's a Tauros, so like don't get too sad. And then with Snorlax, like Snorlax can paralyze you. That's annoying. But also with Amnesia Lax, it can just threaten you with Ice Beam. But also with the Sword Stance and just any chip on Snorlax, you can just KO it with, Hyper Beam as well. So it's cool either way. And it doesn't really show it here, but I'm pretty sure with a single Sword Stance, you're at like 750 something. It's insanely high. And as you can imagine, that means that even though Chansey has Thunder Wave and Ice Beam, which by the way, Ice Beam is only a 3-hit KO, it's not even a guaranteed 2-hit KO. Overall, Tapu Bulu has a pretty good matchup against Chansey. It is not just going to stay there and like risk getting hit with Hyper Beam. It might go for a Thunder Wave, but it's not staying in. Absolutely not. And then with Alakazam, it has low defense, which means that you're easily threatened by Tapu Bulu's just, insanely strong physical attack and Sword Stance. But at the same time, you can also crit it. And it's worth going for, but it's definitely very risky. So I'm actually not sure what the optimal thing to do is, if it's a Alakazam versus, like, Bulu matchup. I'm not sure if the optimal thing is to run away or not. And then with Cloyster, you have Light Screen, but yeah, that just turns Blizzard from a 3-hit KO. You don't have enough time to go for Nature's Madness or even Sword Stance. If you already had Sword Stance up, or if you already have a Light Screen up, then the matchup could become a little bit better. But overall, I would just say that it's a bad matchup for Tapu Bulu, in my opinion. And if against like Cloyster, it's a bad matchup. Executor, I'm just gonna say, is just outright unwinnable. You need Light Screen to, not take like a whole bunch of damage. And even then, in this replay, Tapu Bulu got super lucky by not getting any special drops. How does Tapu Bulu fight against Executor, really? It has Sword Stance and Nature's Madness. That's the only way you can do decent damage. So even if the Executor already put something up to sleep, Executor is just very bulky and can afford to just keep hitting Tapu Bulu with Psychics. So there's just not much you can really do there. So yeah, Executor is the best Grass type still in Gen 1. And Gengar doesn't really care about Tapu Bulu. Tapu Bulu really wishes it had Earthquake. And with it being like a bowl and supposed to be strong, I'm not sure why it can't. So yeah, Sword Stance, Rock Slide, I would imagine it would hit pretty hard. Probably like 2-shot Gengar, but that's definitely not enough. So Gengar can either afford to go for, Hypnosis and not be too scared of like being retaliated against, or it could just simply just attack. Probably not with Thunderbolt, and Psychic probably isn't worth it if Bulu has Light Screen. But I don't see any reason why Gengar can't just Nightshade. Like, Tapu Bulu doesn't really have any way to really, threaten Gengar for the most part. Which, the same can pretty much be said for Jinx. Like, Tapu Bulu, like, yeah, it has Rock Slide, and that's pretty much it. Jinx is faster, murders Tapu Bulu with Blizzard. Since Jinx is faster, there's no way Bulu is getting off a Light Screen in time. And even if it already has one, like, sure, it might be able to beat Jinx. I would imagine at that point, Blizzard becomes a 3-hit KO, maybe. But even then, you saw how much just a single Blizzard did, 83%. We're actually at 83. Okay, I guess that would be 40-something. See, I guess that would be a 3-hit KO. But then, Jinx just either puts you to sleep, or it can just crit and kill you anyways. So I'm just going to say it's an unwinnable matchup. And this one I found interesting and very funny. Because, obviously, Rhydon does not care about Rock Slide or Hyper Beam, even if Bulu gets 2 Sword Stance up. So, Bulu still has Nature's Madness, so it can do pretty good damage to Rhydon. And if it's at, 26%, at that point, maybe a Sword Stance boosted Hyper Beam or Rock Slide can, threaten it. But Rhydon has a few turns to just go for Rock Slide. So, as you saw there, it gives Rhydon a few chances to crit. But even without crits, it's doing a lot of damage to Bulu anyways. Which I think is very funny. Because I don't want Bulu to be completely humiliated, I'm going to put it could go either way. Because it can still do enough damage to where the Rhydon gets, revenge killed. But, yeah, it's weird. And yes, I know I'm not talking about the Swirlbro one, but I feel like this one's is mostly self-explanatory. Bulu has Sword Stance, so Swirlbro's high defense doesn't matter too much. And even with, a whole bunch of Amnesia boost, obviously Surf wasn't going to do that much in the first place. So Bulu just has a great matchup against Swirlbro. Which, at least there's one thing you can still decently counter. I'm realizing now, Snorlax, Rhydon, and Tauros all threaten Bulu. So, does Bulu's Earthquake resistance really matter? Really think about it. Because I'm starting to question if it does. Bulu honestly might just suck. And yeah, it has Reflect, but Drawback is probably the most optimal thing for Zapdos to use still. And they can just crit Bulu anyways. So, yikes. I had a lot of hopes for Bulu, but now I'm starting to question if he would be good. Here is the tier list, and Starmie was also put at unwinnable because it's faster and just has Blizzard. So yeah, this is... Well, honestly, for how much Bulu sucks, and honestly, this probably should just go in bad matchup, if we're being honest. Even if it does a lot of damage, it doesn't actually kill Rhydon, ever. So yeah, this is an issue. The only thing it really consistently beats is just Jolteon and Swirlbro. Chansey, it can, theoretically beat as well. But in actuality, it'll probably just be Chansey paralyzing Bulu and then switching out. So yeah, Bulu, it kind of does suck in all honesty. I still think it will probably see some play in Gen 1. Just because of, like I said, Nature's Madness still inherently gives it a niche. And an Earthquake resistance and high defense. It can probably find its way on some teams. I can't think of much, but that's literally why I have the Generation Jumble. At some point, I will have one with, if not just the Tapus, then maybe just Gen 7 Pokemon as a whole. But we'll have to see. I'm still working on the doc, getting ready for the first tournament for Season 1 of the Generation Jumble. That will be starting very soon, potentially even later today or tomorrow. It just depends on how lazy I feel, I'll be completely honest. What do you think about TAPU BULU? Would it end up being OU? Would it kind of suck? And what other videos would you like to see? Obviously, my next ones are going to be Finny and Lele. And also, I'm just going to need your guys' help right now. I actually forget the order now. Is Finny on the third island? Or is that Lele? Or am I wrong? And it's... Actually, the order doesn't matter. I'll just do the order any way I want. So, yeah. I'll be on the lookout for that. It should be fun. And until next time, this is Grandback, and I look forward to hearing from you.